right, 23 minutes before 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. It's a nice-looking Wednesday here at the Paddock Mall in Ocala, and this is the segment of the morning show where Robin and I bring to you what we call NewsBites. We take the news from around the world, around the nation, around the state, Marion County, and the city of Ocala, and we deliver these news pieces to you, summarized for them, so we get to the point, we cut to the chase, and we save you lots of time, because it's just a matter of listening, and you'll be caught up on most of the big stories happening in your world today, and we get them as fresh as possible and shrink them down, and we also give you the information that will enable you to look into them further by telling you which news agency we got the story from, and we give that to you when we have it. We don't always have that information. These are the agencies that that WOCA subscribes to, so there you go. All right, first one. Which agency is this one from? Oh, this is actually from USA Today. Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius will face intense questioning today from a House committee as she testifies for the first time since the troubled rollout of the National Health Care Law about its plagued enrollment website. As Republicans call for her resignation, and that call is growing louder, Sebelius will appear before the House Energy and Commerce Committee and vow problems to healthcare.gov will be fixed, quote, as soon as possible, unquote. She is also expected to place blame on contractors tasked to build the website, who said last week they were not given enough time to test the technology. The initial consumer experience of healthcare.gov has not lived up to the expectations of the American people and is not acceptable, Sebelius will say, according to testimony prepared for the hearing. Those words echo the sentiment expressed a day earlier by Marilyn Tavenner, the director of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services and the Obama administration official closest to the website's management.
This is a story out of Orlando, Florida, about the immigration demonstration that was held yesterday. Police in Orlando say roughly 20 immigration reform advocates tied up traffic near the federal courthouse yesterday afternoon. 15 people were arrested. Police said the demonstrators were blocking traffic at a busy intersection, so they were restrained with plastic cuffs and taken to police cars. According to the police department, the incident took place after an earlier march and rally calling for immigration reform. Farm workers, students, and others were in the Orlando area calling on Central Florida members of Congress representing the GOP to throw their support to an immigration reform measure that's working its way through Washington. The measure needs the support of the GOP majority, but it may not get it. A critical part of the immigration reform measure involves a pathway to citizenship for illegal immigrants, and opponents say that amounts to amnesty. It's quite likely a congressional deal breaker, since conservatives have promised a primary challenge to anyone who supports such a program. Police said the activists who were handcuffed after the Tuesday traffic tie-up are now facing charges of unlawful assembly.
And this one is from the Associated Press. New York City Police Commissioner Ray Kelly was heckled off the stage at Brown University yesterday by critics angry over the New York Police Department's stop and frisk policy. Kelly, who had been scheduled to give a lecture on proactive policing in America's biggest city at the Ivy League College in Providence, Rhode Island, was forced to cut his remarks short when dozens of students and activists protested prior to the afternoon lecture. Racism is not for debate, one protester yelled, according to the New York Post. Officials at Brown asked the protesters to reserve their comments until a question and answer session with Kelly, but the hall was cleared when the shouts did not end. The New York Police Department is currently defending itself against lawsuits alleging it has engaged in racial profiling. Kelly and Mayor Michael Bloomberg have repeatedly denied those allegations.
Accusations that the pledge was misleading are potentially a deeper threat to Obama than the website glitches that have plagued healthcare.gov since its October 1st launch and allowed only a trickle of people to sign up on new federal insurance exchanges. Obama has downplayed the problems with the website, saying it's like a cash register not working, and has stressed that the underlying product of the 2010 Affordable Care Act is actually really good. Obama is not addressing the fact that Americans are losing prior health plans, according to Reuters.
6 people were found dead in a home by SWAT team members who came after a man called authorities and said he was thinking about hurting himself. This is up in South Carolina, and the story is from the Associated Press. Authorities found the bodies yesterday of 4 adults and 2 children, including the body of the man they believe called police. Greenwood County Sheriff's Office spokesman John Long told the Associated Press the ages of the dead ranged from 9 years old to early 50s. He could not immediately say how the 6 were killed. A preliminary investigation indicates the deaths were related to a domestic-related incident. He declined to call it a murder-suicide.
If you've got something to say about Florida's education standards, don't waste any time. Tomorrow is the deadline. The Florida Board of Education will be voting soon on whether to continue phasing in national education standards known as Common Core, and they're getting plenty of advice from average Floridians. At last count, the state education department received almost 13,000 comments from the public, and that's in addition to the 3 public hearings held earlier this month in Tampa, Tallahassee, and Miami-Dade County. The Board of Education plans to review those comments during their next meeting in November and then figure out where the state of Florida is heading. Former Governor Jeb Bush is an outspoken supporter of Common Core, but there's an unusual coalition of Tea Party conservatives and liberal Democrats who oppose the national standards. If you would like to submit a comment on Common Core, just visit www.flstandards.org.
The next story, I'm going to give a little explanation before I read it so that you know what I'm reading about. This is from ABC News. Do you remember the story of the young woman who never aged? She looked like a baby all of her life.
Oh, yes.
Her name, I'll tell you her name in a second. Anyway, she was 20 years old. She has died. Brooke Greenberg is her name. She baffled scientists because she never aged. She died at the age of 20, having never developed beyond the physical size of an infant or the mental capacity of a 2-year-old. The daughter of Howard and Melanie Greenberg from Reisterstown, Maryland, Brooke is one of about a dozen children in the world who have what some call Syndrome X, a kind of Benjamin Button disorder that prevents them from aging. Her funeral was this past Sunday at a synagogue outside of Baltimore, according to family friends. The family is doing as well as can be expected, said Chris Cole, a colleague of Brooke's father, who told ABCnews.com that they are going through their traditions this week, the Shiva.
Gosh. U.S. lawmakers called yesterday for federal action to prevent parents from giving unwanted adopted children to strangers met on the internet. And the Illinois Attorney General urged Facebook and Yahoo to police online groups where children may be advertised. The demands come as nations whose orphans have been adopted by Americans contend that the U.S. government isn't doing enough to stop the practice known as private rehoming. A Reuters investigation last month revealed an underground market where desperate parents seek new families for children they adopted, but they no longer want them. The parents connect through online forums on Yahoo and Facebook, privately arranging custody transfers that can bypass government oversight and sometimes violate the law. This is from Reuters. This is disgusting.
And this is from CNN. The Navy's newest warship slipped out of dry dock this week into the waters off of Maine, marking a new era for war fighting at sea. The USS Zumwalt, the first of the DDG-1000 class of destroyers, is longer, faster, and carries state-of-the-art weapons that will allow it to destroy targets at more than 60 miles, according to the Navy. At 610 feet long and 81 feet wide, the Zumwalt is longer and thinner than the USS Arizona, a battleship sunk at Pearl Harbor, but it weighs about half as much. Much of the ship's superstructure is wrapped in a huge canopy made of lightweight carbon fiber composite. The canopy and the rest of the ship is built on angles that help make it 50 times harder to spot on radar than an ordinary destroyer.
Remotely controlled unmanned aerial vehicles, or drones, have already transformed the nature of war, and the debate on the moral, legal, and tactical issues that drones present has increased. At the White House last week, President Barack Obama got an earful from Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, who called for an end to the drone strikes that have targeted al-Qaeda and militant figures in Pakistan. At the UN, a special rapporteur on human rights and countering terrorism, Ben Emerson, issued an interim report on his international investigation into drone strikes and targeted killings. The international community heard the results of the injury into allegations that the increasing use of remotely piloted aircraft has caused disproportionate civilian casualties, according to CBS.
And this from the Associated Press. A missing Kansas man spent his final days trapped in the wreckage of his van in a rural Utah ravine, writing goodbye letters to the family he unexpectedly left in early September. David Welch was 54 years old. His body was found on October 18th by a hitchhiker who spotted the crash in a desolate stretch of eastern Utah, more than 50 miles from any town, according to the Utah Highway Patrol. They found Welch trapped inside his mangled minivan at the bottom of a 50-foot ravine with handwritten notes to his wife and 4 adult sons. What's in those letters, though, is not being made public. The Welch family declined comment for the story, and the Utah Highway Patrol isn't sharing what they call very personal. The discovery brought a tragic end to a difficult several weeks for the Welch family that began on September 2nd when they reported him missing from his home in Manhattan, Kansas. The family said Welch, a retired salesman, left in a 2000 Pontiac, Montana, without telling anyone where he was going, according to the Riley County Police Department. Over the next several days, Riley County Police of Kansas did several searches of the area that came up empty, according to the agency. Welch was put into the National Missing Persons database. He's been found, and he left a legacy of letters to his wife and family.
Oh my gosh. Well, farmers are welcoming a new business model to their fields as more couples say "I moo" to hosting weddings at dairies and creameries. Whether the fad for dairy farms is being fueled by celebrities or inspiring them is hard to determine. Not only was pop singer Kelly Clarkson recently married at a farm, but the earlier video for her single, Tie It Up, featured a couple walking the grounds of the Double T Ranch in Central California. The property has become so popular as a wedding venue that the events offset other profit losses, according to owner Tony Azevedo. While the word dairy may conjure images of flies and cow pies, the idea of a farm wedding or barn wedding appeals to those with natural sensibilities and love of food. The expansive outdoor scenery is also atypical from traditional banquet halls. I move.
From the UPI, I move, yeah. The UPI News Network is where I get this next story from. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie yesterday began his tour of the Jersey Shore, damaged a year ago by Hurricane Sandy, by criticizing the congressional response, saying, quote, "Let's start off with the fact that it took 92 days for Congress to act on aid for Sandy victims. That's unprecedented. It took 10 days for Katrina and 17 days for Gustav," Christie said on CBS This Morning yesterday. The first federal dollars from aid package didn't flow to New Jersey until the end of May. Christie, facing re-election next week, appeared on network morning shows before embarking on a 10-stop tour of Sandy-ravaged communities and a prayer service in Newark, according to the Newark Star-Ledger newspaper. He also was critical of the administrative red tape that we call the Katrina hangover, Christie said on NBC's Today Show, because some of the waste and abuse in the wake of that storm, there is a lot more federal regulation that folks are having to deal with.
This is from the Associated Press. Civil rights activist Al Sharpton met with the CEO of Barney's New York yesterday to discuss allegations of racial profiling at the high-end retailer. While the New York State Attorney General's office demanded its own meeting with Barney's and also with Macy's. 2 black customers accused Barney's of discrimination last week after they said they had lawfully purchased items but were detained by police on suspicion of credit card fraud. Barney's CEO Mark Lee met with Sharpton at Sharpton's National Action Network office in Harlem. Lee said Barney's own initial investigation showed no employees were at fault in the 2 incidents, but he said the retailer does not tolerate discrimination and wants to be part of the solution to racial profiling. Macy's flagship Manhattan store also has been hit with a claim from a black actor that he was stopped because of his race while shopping. Macy's didn't comment on the litigation, but said in a statement it was investigating. Lee deflected questions about whether he felt that police acted on their own to detain the customers.
And this is from the Associated Press. A team of New York underwater explorers say they have found the wreck of a Canadian steamship that sank off the eastern shore of Lake Ontario nearly a century ago. The trio from the Rochester area announced this morning that they recently discovered the 128-foot Roberval in more than 300 feet of water 16 miles off of Oswego. Jim Kennard says he and his partners were wrapping up their season of searching for historic shipwrecks when their sonar equipment detected a wreck that they later identified as the Roberval. The Ottawa-based steamer was hauling lumber across the lake's eastern end when it sank after being hit by a rogue wave in September of 1916. Of the 9-member Canadian crew, 2 of them drowned and 7 survived, including 4 who made a raft out of floating lumber.
The price of crude oil dropped closer to $98 per barrel in New York yesterday after a mixed batch of economic reports. On the New York Mercantile Exchange, West Texas Intermediate crude dropped 45 cents to reach $98.23 per barrel. Home heating oil, 36 cents to reach $2.9608 a gallon. Reformulated blend stock gasoline lost $2.61. It reached $2.6048 a gallon. Natural gas shed 7 cents to settle a $3.50 per million British thermal units. At the pump, the national average price of unleaded gasoline dropped to $3.278 per gallon from Monday's $3.385 per gallon. This is according to the AAA Daily Fuel Gauge report reported by UPI.
Israel this morning announced plans to build 1,500 new homes in East Jerusalem, the part of the city claimed by the Palestinians, just hours after it freed a group of Palestinian prisoners as part of a deal to set peace talks in motion. The settlement construction was seen as an attempt by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to make up for the prisoner release, for which he has been sharply criticized at home. The prisoners were jailed for deadly attacks on Israelis. Interior Ministry spokeswoman Lital Apter said this morning that the 1,500 apartments would be built in Ramat Shlomo, a sprawling settlement in East Jerusalem. She said Israel also plans to develop an archaeology and tourism site near the Old City, home to Jerusalem's most sensitive holy sites. Israel captured East Jerusalem along with the West Bank and Gaza Strip in the 1967 Mideast War. The Palestinians seek all 3 areas for a future state with East Jerusalem as their capital. Israel considers all of Jerusalem to be its eternal capital, and Netanyahu has vowed never to divide the city. Israel has built a series of settlements, including Ramat Shlomo, to solidify its control. Although Israel's annexation of East Jerusalem is not internationally recognized, it considers these settlements to be neighborhoods of the city.
As the problems pile up for healthcare.gov, attention is now turning to the relationship between the Canadian company largely responsible for the website and the Obama administration. Top officials at CGI Federal, a lead contractor tasked with developing the site, have a 3-decade link to the Obamas. Tony Towns Whitley, a senior vice president at CGI Federal, is also a Princeton University classmate of First Lady Michelle Obama and a political donor. Mike Cadell, a spokesman for Princeton University, confirmed this to Fox News that Towns Whitley went to the school and graduated in 1985. According to a Princeton alumni publication in 1998, Towns Whitley also volunteered for the Peace Corps and was stationed in West Africa. She raised 6 children before returning to work, according to Fox News.
And you are listening to NewsBites. This is the portion of the morning that we bring to you the news from around the world, nation, state, and county and city, and we summarize the news stories so that we can squeeze as many in during this segment as possible. It's about a 23-minute long segment, and we typically get in 20 or so stories, usually a little bit more than 20. And right now, as I speak to you live, I could be speaking about your business. And the way that would happen is if you were an advertiser or sponsor of this show, and if you would like to advertise on this show or any other show, just come by the radio station, speak to somebody in our sales staff, and that's all it is to it. They'll explain everything. The radio station is located in the Paddock Mall right outside of the food court. So don't go into the food court, just come go to the parking lot by the food court, and you'll see us before you even enter the actual mall. And here's the next story. Parents, this is from the Telegraph in the United Kingdom. Parents should sing to their children when they hurt themselves, as lullabies help to reduce their pain, according to a study. Singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, Hush-A-Bye Baby, and Five Little Ducks to sick children was found to alleviate their suffering by researchers at London's Great Ormond Street Hospital. They say the songs to a group of children under 3, some of whom were waiting for heart transplants, and monitored their heart rates and pain perception.
Oh, wow.
The scientists then compared this with 2 other groups, one in which the children had been read to and the other where they had been left alone, and found only those who had been sung to showed a reduction in pain or heart rate.
The story is out of Orlando. As interest in electric vehicles continue to keep the automotive industry charged, the nation is pounding out strategies on how to best integrate plug-in vehicles with a larger electrical grid and highways. Now, with funding from the U.S. Department of Transportation for the creation of the first transportation center with a focus on electric vehicles, the University of Central Florida will help chart that course in Florida. That news comes from the university and the Department of Transportation. The Electric Vehicle Transportation Center, operated by UCF's Florida Solar Energy Center, is a newly funded 4-year, $9 million research effort to help create the nation's electric vehicle transportation network. Research conducted by the center will help transportation planners prepare our nation's highways for the influx of plug-in electric vehicles while developing smart grid applications that will strengthen the ability of our electric system to accommodate the power demands of electric vehicles. The University of Central Florida's EVTC is among 33 universities funded to address critical transportation challenges facing the nation.
And the next story is from the Associated Press. The court battle between 2 girls in the Pennsylvania school over the I Heart Boobies bracelets could be settled by the U.S. Supreme Court. The Eastern Area School District Board voted 7-1 yesterday evening to appeal a federal appeals court decision that rejected its claim that the bracelets are lewd and should be banned from school. The case started in 2010 when 2 girls, ages 12 and 13, challenged the school's ban on the bracelets designed to promote breast cancer awareness among young people. The students, Brianna Hawk and Kayla Martinez, said they merely hoped to promote awareness of the disease at their middle school. They filed lawsuits when they were suspended for defying the ban on the school's breast cancer awareness day. In August, the Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals upheld a lower court's decision in favor of the girls, saying also that the district didn't prove the bracelets were disruptive.
Russia has denied reports it attempted to spy on foreign powers meeting at the G20 summit in St. Petersburg, Russia earlier this year, denouncing the allegations as a clear attempt to divert attention from revelations concerning the United States National Security Agency. 2 Italian newspapers claimed yesterday that USB flash drives and cables to charge mobile phones that were given to delegates, including heads of state, at the September meeting were equipped with technology to retrieve data from computers and telephones. Tensions were high over the possibility of military strikes on Syria, as well as over Russia's decision in August to grant asylum to NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden. From The Guardian.
And that's all the time we have for News Bites. We bring you the news each day, each weekday anyway, during this time slot. It's your way of catching up on the news without spending oodles of time in front of your TV or radio. Robin, how many did we squeeze in today? 23 stories today. All right, we'll do it again tomorrow. Right now, we'll take a little break, and when we come back, we'll be speaking about the Ocala Shrine Club. This is The Source, WOCA. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Larry.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA. Ocala.
ABC News Now. I'm Karen Chase. What could be a long day begins within the hour for Health Secretary Kathleen Sebelius. She's testifying before a congressional committee which is sure to have pointed questions about the glitchy government website. President Obama heads to Faneuil Hall in Boston today to appeal for patients. It's the very site where then-Governor Mitt Romney signed the Massachusetts health program into law in 2006. The president will point out that program got off to a bumpy start, too. Good news and bad news about children having children. A new UN report finds teen pregnancies in the developing world are declining, but more than 7 million girls under 18 are still giving birth every year, and girls under 14 account for 2 million of them. The captain of an Italian cruise ship was entertaining a young woman on the bridge when the ship crashed and capsized on the rocks 2 years ago. He had denied it, but she confirmed it in testimony at his manslaughter trial. It's already been a rough road trip for the St. Louis Cardinals. Their flight to Boston for Game 6 of the World Series was delayed for 6 hours by technical problems. They finally arrived. The game gets underway tonight. This is ABC News.
Right now at the Home Depot, kitted 10-year sealed battery smoke and carbon monoxide alarms start at just $24.97. So, let's worry less. Let's do smarter fire safety. Alarms that won't turn off and batteries that won't chirp for 10 long years. Let's do this. Get a worry-free alarms starting at just $24.97. More saving, more doing. That's the power of the Home Depot. U.S. only. See store for details.
Geico has various discounts to help you save even more money on your car insurance. Good driver, multi-car, even a discount for being a good student, which is an incentive for your teenagers to get good grades. And if they get good grades, they might get a good job and possibly become rich. Then they could pay for your car insurance. What a brilliant idea.
For a free rate quote, visit geico.com to see how much you could save. Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Life jackets save lives. We're in Florida. Sunshine today, some clouds and warm. There can be a shower in spots along the coast, the high 80 to 84. And partly cloudy tonight, just a chance of a shower along the coast, low 65, inland to 71 at the beaches. Tomorrow, times of sun and clouds and warm. There may be a shower in the morning near the coast, the high 82 to 86. And for Friday, some sunshine and warm, high 83 to 87. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Aliens?
Yes, George. George, you're all wet.
I went to Devon Self-Storage and put back my fishing gear.
Okay. You know Devon Self-Storage is open early and you had all day to bring your fishing gear back. And they're right across from Hobby Lobby.
I know. I have my own code to get into Devon Self-Storage. And their phone number, too, is 873-0777.
So why did you wait till it started raining?
I didn't. I slipped getting the boat out of the water.
Boat?
Bye!
George?
On the next Voice of Ocala, it's time to get in the groove with minor league